Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the Schmoedown Rundown. What's going on, Movie Trivia Schmoedown fans? It is episode number 21 of the Schmoedown Rundown. My name is Aaron. I am your host for these proceedings. Joining me today, the stat man, Frank Janisch. What's up, man?
Nothing much, guys. What a crazy few matches we had this week, and a few means three.
Very nicely done. I like your mathematician there. Also here is Brian Davids. What's going on, man?
Aaron, I'm thrilled to be here. Frank, I'm thrilled to be here again. And I'm just debating whether the Lion's Den should be known as the Lion's Denzel from now on.
We'll get to that here in a minute. Before we get going, talking about the matches, we got some news this week. We got some stuff to sink our teeth into. Our fearless leader, Commissioner Christian Harloff, has dropped an updated schedule of matches for the coming weeks. Let me start with you on this one, Frank. You see the list here. What sticks out to you? What match are you looking forward to?
Aside from the marquee names, the one that stood out to me was Nose versus RB3. I think we've all been anticipating RB3's debut in the league, and I'm really looking forward to how he does against Nose, because it's really, RB3, what is that? What is he, like 18, 19 years old? Something like that. And then
He's not old enough to drink.
Not old enough to drink, right. And going against Nose, who's done very well in the Schmoedown on the team side, not so much singles, but nonetheless, he knows his stuff, and it's this age gap that I'm really interested in seeing how RB3 can bridge the gap, if you will.
Very well. Brian, what do you think, man? What sticks out to you? What match are you looking forward to?
It's really pick your poison. I'm excited for the top 10 Schmoes slugfest. Those guys always seem to go at it, whether it's singles or team matches. That match kind of snuck up. I didn't realize it was so soon. I'm glad to see that Perry and Brienne are finally booked. I like that we have women's competing in singles. That's always great to see. And Signor Harloff. I want to see these guys dish it out once again. So tons of great matches either which way. Of course, we got Michelle Boyd coming to Inner Geekdom. So you can't go wrong in any direction.
I'll agree with both of you. I think the one that sticks out to me the most is that 5-way Inner Geekdom contender match. You're going to have Rachel Cushing in there. You have Jason Inman. Hal Rudnick makes his return. Michelle Boyd, like you said, and Jeremy Johns in action as well. That's going to be a barn burner. The winner will take on Robert Meyer Burnett, who in turn will take on Hector Navarro. So that has got big time implications. I think that will probably, for me, the show stealer, the show stopper, the one I'm looking forward to the most. I am also interested to see what RB3 can do. Interested to see what Brienne can do and Perry can do in singles. Those should be great matchups. Let's get to the team recap this week. It was the Knight sisters, Joelle, Monique, and Emma Fife versus Team Action. Frank, take us through the scoring breakdown. What happened in round one?
In round one, we had Fife and Monique combining for 8 points. Team Action also combined for 8 points. It was a fun, entertaining match, or round, I should say, at least. I like the way each team was scraping through this round, especially once we got past the first couple categories. And later into the round, it was fun to see teammates pick each other up. Emma would know a question, Monique wouldn't. Joelle would know a question, then Emma wouldn't. And so we went back and forth even with Team Action like that. So I thought that was really fun to see. And I don't think we've ever seen a round kind of like that. So that was really compelling for me to watch.
Seems like a very balanced round. I mean, that's 50% of the questions answered on both sides. So that's pretty good. What about you, Brian? What stuck out to you?
Yeah, I think the key phrase here is back and forth. No one could gain any momentum. Each teammate would alternate answering each question, and that was the case for both teams. So a couple moments that stood out, though, when Emma called out Mr. Roxy Strider for his designer imposter cologne, I was curious if he was going to be taken out of the match, because this is a pretty significant burn. It kind of got the audience all riled up. So I was curious to see how his performance would be moving forward, but didn't seem to take him out too much.
And they had a decent entrance. I like the Top Gun entrance. I preferred the Night Sisters entrance with the lightsabers and the theatrics. I thought that was pretty cool. Let's go into round two. Frank, what happened there?
So in round two, Night Sisters spun first, and they spun Tom Hanks, which they stuck with. They ended up getting 2 points in that round on multiple choice questions. For Team Action, when it was their turn, they spun 90s, and they ended up getting 6 points and they went to multiple choice 3 times, never capitalizing. So it was an interesting round from the Night Sisters' perspective because they stuck with Tom Hanks. What do you guys think of them sticking with Tom Hanks?
Normally, the Tom Hanks category would not be a death sentence, but holy cow, we had some deep cut Tom Hanks questions, and it was really Team Action that stepped up in that category because how many steals did they get in that
3
round?
straight steals.
Holy moly, that
ultimately
that more or less sealed the deal for him. So that's where the game took a giant swing. It wasn't necessarily the category of 90s that did it for him. It was all those steals.
Tom Hanks, I thought it was interesting they stuck with Tom Hanks because when you pick someone, an actor, you go through their whole history of work. And that's a lot of stuff to cover, especially a guy like Tom Hanks. Back when Patriots played Heroes, they actually went with Tom Hanks. And Team Heroes was 4 of 6 for 8 points. For the Night Sisters, I think they were up against something pretty formidable in a Tom Hanks category because you can go back to his earlier work, which they asked some questions about that, like the punchline question.
Man with one red shoe. I mean, these were very deep cuts, like you said.
Yeah, so they went. I mean, Sleepless in Seattle is a more well-known one throughout generations, or as a rom-com. So I thought it was an interesting pick because there's a lot to go on. And I love Tom Hanks, but I certainly don't know a lot of his earlier stuff, and I don't know how much they would have known. It seemed like they were kind of hoping they would get some of the later stuff. They got a little bit with that. It was like Apollo 13, but that was about it, and they didn't even know that one. So
yeah, they didn't use multiple choice either, and so Team Action had a big 2-point steal right there, because they did not utilize multiple choice. So really those 3 straight steals decided the match.
Yeah, one thing we actually skipped that we need to go back to is the rule change in round 1 now. If the team or the singles person gets all the questions right in round 1, gets all the points, they get a bonus 2 points?
You get a bonus 2-point question. You don't get 2 points. You get a question to get 2 more points.
Yeah, each player gets a 2-point question.
I didn't see this one coming. I mean, is that going to affect strategy going forward, do you think? Or is it just kind of like a nice added bonus if you get there?
It's just a nice reward for having a great round. But to that point, if someone has a perfect round 2, shouldn't they have the option for a bonus 2-point question as well?
That's going to be the slippery slope of it. It's only a matter of time before that happens.
If you're going to reward round 1, why not reward round 2, Frank?
Well, here's what I'll say about that. Round 1, when we look at the play of round 1, overall throughout the league thus far through 9 matches, the average team is only getting 8 points combined. That's 50%. So if a team can get all 8 combined, I think that's the 2-point question per player is much warranted because that's a huge feat that no one's accomplished except for one team, and that would have been Team IGN when Jim Viveda answered the last 7 questions, if you will, and then his teammate Eric Goldman, he answered that first one. So they're the only team that would have been eligible thus far for those bonus points. But other than that, no one's really come close to it. So I think it's a cool thing to implement in the round 1. As for round 2, I don't know because with multiple choice, it makes it a little easier for you.
Well, they'd have to get all 2-pointers.
Right. Okay. So if they did it without multiple choice, I could see the argument there. I wouldn't give them 2 points. I would probably give an extra bonus point because you're already answering for 2 points. I think it kind of balances out the round 1 to round 2.
I think I see what you're saying here. You're basically saying that if you're a team that goes through the first round, you get all of your questions, you've more or less earned that extra 2-point bonus question because of how many questions there are and the percentage chance of you actually getting them all. Is that about right?
Yeah, because it's very surprising to me how average 50% all these teams are doing. There's only a handful of teams like IGN, Wolves of Steel, Patriots to a certain degree have done pretty well above average. No one's gotten close to at least 8 points on the regular. So that's where I'm standing. Yeah.
Let me try to sell you on a round 2 bonus question. If you get a bad wheel category, such as movie release dates, and you get all those questions right for 8 points or 12 points, there's six questions each team in round 2, 12 points. If you get a tough wheel category like movie release dates and you get them all right, you deserve a reward for going through such a tough wheel category.
Well, a tough wheel category is very subjective. As we'll talk about, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but Andreyko, I mean, for a lot of people, Star Wars is not that hard of a category. For him, it was. So, I mean, it's hard to say what's a tough category and what isn't. Am I hearing you right? Like, you think this category is tough for this person, or?
I'm just saying, if you're going to reward round 1, you might as well reward round 2 because certain round 2s are subjective weaknesses for certain teams. And if they do manage a perfect round, such as movie release dates, a reward would be in order. It's harder to justify that when it's a strength of theirs, but they could easily get a weakness of theirs. So I just think you have to keep it balanced. If you're going to give a bonus in round 1, I think you should keep it balanced with round 2 as well. That's just me.
I lean a little bit more towards Frank's side. There's one category I could see where in round 2, you would, if you got them all 2-pointers, that you would deserve bonus points. And that's if you spend opponent's choice and they pick whatever they want for you and you get them all, then you deserve bonus points.
I do like that idea.
How about opponent's choice and movie release? Movie release dates is tough for just about everyone. So how about those 2 categories? Give me that. You got to give me that.
I can't give you that because you got Scott Mance that's done well in it. You've got Hector and Adam from Superhero News that have done well at it. Some people are really good at it. So
that's 2 out of 65, Aaron.
The Schmoes also believe they're really good at movie release dates. They just caught a bad go of it. No, but Mance has never always been 100% through movie release dates. So he can have a bad day, even though we know he's really good at it. So that's why I don't think a bonus would be in order. I mean, you're already getting 2 points, the possibility of 2 points per question. You also get the opportunity to steal if your opponent misses. I don't think additional bonus points for getting 100% correct in that round is completely warranted. Although I wouldn't be completely against it, but I just personally, I don't think it's needed.
This isn't over, not by a long shot.
Plus, I think if you add a bonus in round 2, that it may take a little bit of the shine off of round 3. Because if you may miss one of those great round 3 comebacks, it may help you get to a TKO faster. That's not necessarily something that I would want.
Well, keep in mind we just added a point to round 3's 1-pointer, which is now 2 points. So I think round 2 deserves some love as far as extra points.
Hey, they got a new wheel. What more do you want?
Sounds like a poll. Let us know in the comments what you think. Are you team Frank and Aaron? Or are you team Brian? let us know in the comments.
I like your salesmanship.
Thank you very much. Let's jump to round 3, Frank. What happened there in round 3?
Yeah, what happened in round 3? Well, the Night Sisters, they didn't do much with their 2 categories of war and release dates, 2-pointer and 3-pointer respectively. They did not answer correctly. One thing I noticed watching this match, Joelle Monique's war question, it got me thinking, something's familiar about this. So I went back through all my match sheets where I keep track of everything, and I came across a match way back on October 4th of last year. It was Wolves of Steel versus Heroes. It was round 3. The first question at that point, it was for 1 point, and it was Robert Meyer Burnett's question. And the category that he got, by the way, he picked number 6. This war category was number 12. The question that he got was, and I'm reading verbatim, which Terrence Malick film was released the same year as Saving Private Ryan and also centered around World War II. The exact same question Joelle Monique got.
Oh, boy.
Had she done her homework and watched this match, she would have known the answer is Thin Red Line, or she might have thought it was Thin Blue Line if she didn't completely finish watching Robert Meyer Burnett answer. But it was Thin Red Line, and I think this is the very first time we have had, at least in Collider, we've had a repeat question. I don't think it's ever happened. And I was surprised to see that nobody else in the comments had brought it up. I didn't see anybody else bring it up. Maybe somebody did. I went looking through comments and on YouTube and on Facebook. I didn't see anybody bring it up. And I know there are some pretty good steely-eyed, people out there. But here it is. You can go ahead and look that match up, and it's right there.
I anxiously await your DMs right now as Chris Skaliski, as he is listening to this, is just typing frantically to get into your DMs. Love the guy. That's very interesting. Brian, conspiracy theory? What we got going on here?
I want to say that I recall having a conversation like this in the past, but I want to say that the question was worded differently, but it may have been the same answer at the end of the day. So I'm not gonna say confidently that Frank is wrong, but I think Skaliski needs to pick up the red telephone.
What I can tell you for sure, these 2 questions were verbatim, word for word. Outside of that, I'm not sure. I mean, I think there have been questions that have been worded similarly and have gotten a similar answer. Right. There have been those, but this one,
this is exact. Okay.
This is exactly. I was really like, holy shit.
Listen,
so like Dewberry last week, I said Dewberry, if he watched these matches, he would know whether to pursue mixed bag or not. So you can't put it on Joel
No, but
as much as that. But
yeah.
I see what you're saying. You learn a lot just by watching these matches, especially if you're a competitor.
And I don't want to make it look like we're taking a dig at Skaliski. My God, I cannot imagine putting all of those questions together. I mean, now I know that he has Perry writing questions with him. I cannot imagine what an undertaking that is. So we're not taking shots at him. It's just, it is something of note for sure. And it just speaks to Frank doing his research that he found out that those questions were verbatim.
I just also want to point out, this is just one instance out of like nearly over 3,000 questions they've asked. So 1 out of like 3,000, that's pretty good if you ask me.
Yeah, I think we're good here, especially it being 5 months apart. You know, if it was like 2 weeks apart, then it'd be like, wait a second. But being months and months apart. And by the way, just a quick question. Did Burnett get it wrong as well?
No, he got it right. He initially said
okay.
the blue line because that was a documentary, but then he self-corrected himself right away, said thin red line.
Oh, that's right. I do remember that question. Okay. Yeah. So what happened? What's the final score? What happened?
So the final score by TKO, Team Action wins 18-11.
So Team Action gets the victory in their debut. Unfortunately, the Night Sisters go down via TKO. Brian, do you think that either one of these teams can be formidable in the future? What do you see as next for both of these teams?
It was an ugly match, any which way you slice it. And I know the Night Sisters were TKO'd, but the score it's not as lopsided as it may seem. I mean, they had those 3 straight steals in the Tom Hanks category that ultimately ended the match, but I was really impressed with some of the questions that Emma was able to answer. So I think she has potential even on a singles level. With Team Action, I need to see a little bit more. They got a lot of questions wrong that they should have gotten. It's hard for me to root, though, for a team like Team Action. There was excessive celebrating and clapping after each point, especially in round 2. That kind of got on my nerves a bit. The singing, the spiking of the football once they won, Andrew jumping on stage once they won. I know it's more fun to be a heel, but there's a certain art to it. So I still need them to warm up to me a little bit. But I got to ask you guys, is there a rule that the first question of the Schmoedown has to be animation related?
I believe it's just a set system now. The only question that's different is the last question in round 1, which it rotates.
Because the first question of today's 3 match or this week's 3 matches were all animated. And I've noticed this before. So I was just curious if this was something they've made official or not.
I don't think they've come out and said it's official, but it seems like the first question is always animated. And I think the 7th question, or in the singles case, the 5th question is always horror suspense. So I think at least for those 2 categories, it's always the same as far as I can tell.
The first 7 categories for the teams is a set. It's set. It's been this way since the very beginning, except for that last 8th question. It goes animated drama, comedy, action, adventure, fantasy, sci-fi. Oh, actually, no. I'm not exactly sure when they started it, but they did start it fairly on in the season. For a little while, it's been a set category list down the road.
Do you guys think that Team Action can be fan favorites? Do you think that people will latch on to them?
I think that some people already have. I saw some comments saying that they love the gimmick, they love the Top Gun stuff. Kind of just, they reminded me of like a, and I don't mean to generalize them like this, but it just kind of reminded me of like cocky frat boy kind of stuff, which that might be a little mean-spirited, but I mean it in the nicest way I can. I could see that type of thing being appealing, and they're just guys that like action movies and guys that like to hang out. So if you're into that, if you're one of those type of guys, then I could see you gravitating towards them. Frank, final thoughts on the matchup?
I thought it was a decent match. I mean, we've seen better, obviously. There's still a lot to be proved from both of these teams. Team Action, they answered just about 54% correct. Night Sisters was about 41%. So nothing really blew me out of the water. I will say TKOs, it's a nice little stat to have, but they don't mean anything to me. They don't carry any weight to me, because to me, it's the other team that didn't do well. It shows a sign that the other team didn't do well. If it's a KO, it's really a combination of your opposing team didn't do that well, and you answered just about everything that was in front of you to get to that KO point. Right. So a TKO doesn't really mean a whole lot to me. Just ask Tough Beats. It doesn't really mean a whole lot for them at this point. So I'd still like to see a couple more matches from both of these teams to have my opinion on where they can go. I will say this about Night Sisters, though. It goes back to that first round where they were kind of helping each other out every other question almost. They would pick each other up.
Right.
So it seems like they might be filling these gaps, and that could prove down the road to be beneficial for them. I'm not quite sure on Team Action. They did miss the action adventure category. I'm not sure how that happens if your name's Team Action, but I'll let that be.
I feel like Team Action should change their name to Team Designer Imposter Cologne. I think that's a better name.
I think I know somebody that would absolutely agree with you. This week in singles action, one of the big matches, we had a debuting Jay Washington going up against the returning Marc the Android Andreyko. Brian, why don't you take us through round one?
Yeah, Jay Washington, the urban gladiator. He's a comedian and former wrestler. So, Aaron, he's kind of your spirit animal, you could say.
I am a big wrestling fan. I was not aware of Jay Washington's wrestling prowess, but I have since done a little bit of research. I'm impressed with what I've seen.
And I like that the android is pretending like he's only had one match against Bibiani. So he's playing his cards right already. But it was all android in round one. He was up 6-2 by the end of the round. And it was a very up and down round, all things considered. Neither of them could answer the question one, Wreck-It Ralph question. Again, another animated question. This happened again with Bootstrap Bill, Pirates of the Caribbean. So even though Android was up 6-2 at the end of the round, no one had decided the match yet. The match was still within reach, despite the 4-point lead by Android. Aaron, thoughts on round one?
I was really actually scared for Jay Washington after round one because of being up by 4 points is not necessarily a gigantic lead. But when you're playing somebody like Marc Andreyko, who scored 20 points in his first match and has been very impressive in this Schmoedown so far through 2 matches already, I kind of got worried. But as we'll talk about here in a minute, round 2 told a different story.
I got what I expected out of Andreyko. I wasn't sure I was going to get out of Jay Washington. With Andreyko, I kind of thought the Wreck-It Ralph question I can kind of forgive just because just about everybody doesn't do that well in animated. I thought the Pirates of the Caribbean question probably should have got that one. It seems like he feels like he should have got that one as well. But 6 points is nothing to sneeze at in this 8-question round.
Well, round 2, again, Android carried his 6-2 lead going into round 2, and he spun Star Wars not once, but twice. And then Andreyko threw shade at Star Wars by saying, I hope this is about the one good one. So when you're in a room full of Star Wars fans, not the best thing to say if you're trying to win over the crowd, but either which way, Android could not solve this round. Only got, I think, let's see here. I don't think he got any points on his Star Wars questions. Yeah, he got no points in this round. And Jay Washington was able to get 1 point on a steal. He stole Anchorhead, question 4. And then Jay, once he spun comic book movies, he was able to actually take the lead 8-7. So big round from Jay, simply because Andreyko, not a Star Wars sweaty.
Frank, I actually wanted to ask you a question. Is this the first time that someone has gone over in a round? It's not the first time.
Not the first time. It's only happened one time before, and that was when Jeff Snyder played against
El Mayimbe.
That's correct. He did get a 1-point steal later on, just like Andreyko did, but he's the only other guy to go over a set of 4 questions. There have been other numerous people who've only gotten 1 question correct in their round 2. A lot of that happened in 2014. One guy that stuck out to me and was pretty funny. He was a repeat offender. His name was Finstock, so it's amazing.
Who?
Yeah, we'll leave it at that.
Let me ask you this though. What was the category that El Mayimbe did not get any out of? Do you have that information?
Yeah, let me get back to you on that one.
Aaron, did you know the Anchorhead answer?
I had no idea. Star Wars would be just an absolute detriment to me as well. As much as I enjoy the films, there's no way I would trust myself in trivia of Star Wars. No way in hell. So
even if you're a big Star Wars fan, some of these were rather difficult. I thought Lobot being Lando's assistant, that's difficult. But great moment though for Android when he wanted to challenge Macy Gray because she's no longer a famous singer in regards to Jay Washington's second question, Macy Gray, Spider-Man parade scene. But Jay took the lead. Jamie Alexander making a appearance in the Schmoedown. Collider fans have a lot of attachment to Jamie Alexander. And a big round from Jay, but that quickly changed in round 3.
Real quick, guys, for Gonzalez's category he had in round 2 when he went over, it was in the category of Scorsese. So I'll have to go back and look at those questions. I don't know which questions. I'd be curious to see. I'm not sure how you can go Ofran and Scorsese, especially with multiple choice, which he never even used. Yeah, not once. So I think he didn't even know the rules or what he was doing there that day. Also for Andreyko, I know, Brian, you had said those are, for even for a Star Wars fan, those might be kind of difficult questions, if I remember hearing you correctly.
I thought so.
Honestly, I knew all those instantly. I'm a huge Star Wars fan, so to me, it was super disappointing to sit there and watch that happen. I could not believe my eyes and ears.
Well, this time Aaron and I can gang up on you to say that those last two were hard for us. Therefore, majority rules? Rules?
I actually can't agree on the Lobot question. I knew that instantly. I've actually theorized. I actually had a prequel idea for a Lobot story, but never mind. Say that for another podcast.
You set me up. You set me up once again.
That's what I do. Let's talk about round 3. How about that?
Again, Jay Washington 8-7 lead going into round 3. Android kicked it right off with a 2-pointer. Ang Lee, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Android takes the lead 9-8. Jay shoots right back with The Thing. Michael Chiklis, 2005 Fantastic Four, 10-9 Jay. And then Android, Courage Under Fire, a Lion's Den member, getting an answer in relation to Denzel correctly. Meg Ryan, this would be a theme for today's events. Android took a 12-10 lead. Jay Washington could not get the midnight run question. And once again, Jay Washington could not get his 5-pointer either. Android wins 12-10.
Jay Washington went against statistical analysis of a player who is leading going into the last round. They usually win 82% of the time.
Wow.
In league play. So for him to lose, even though it was a 1-point lead, it still counts. There's been a few 1-point leads that have evaporated and turned into losses. So history was on his side to win this, but it just wasn't meant to be, as he was unable to get his final 2 categories. He will now join the other 7 previous people who have failed to win after leading 2 rounds.
I didn't know how this was going to go. I was very impressed with the Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Not that it was a difficult one, but it's been a minute since that movie was released, and I think Ang Lee's made such many other great films since then that it might have got lost in the shuffle. But that was a great answer from Andreyko. Washington, I thought he did very well for a debut, especially going up against a guy that we know is as good as Andreyko is. I definitely want to see him show up again. I think that he would be better served as a heel as opposed to a face character. I think he's got a lot of juice in the tank on promos and just the sheer intimidation factor. The guy scared me to death. So I kind of want to see him in more of that role if we can, but you know, a good performance from Andreyko, a good performance from Washington as well.
I hate to follow that point up with this point, but while I was taking notes about this match, I said, you know, Jay's got great spirit, he's got a great personality to add to this league, especially with his wrestling background. But I didn't think Jay was suited for singles play, just inner geekdom play. And as I was notating this, he literally retired from singles play and said he wants to focus on inner geekdom. So he's going to play in free-for-all. He wants Hector, but he wisely, I think, took himself out of singles play moving forward, as he just wants to be an inner geekdom guy. So
it kind of gets muddied in the inner geekdom space because we don't have inner geekdom rankings and there's not like a separate tier for inner geekdom right now. So it's kind of a bit muddy. I just assume everybody's under the same singles banner. So I don't know. We'll have to sort that out later, but I like the performance. I think if they went up against each other one-on-one, I think that Jay Washington would have a good chance against Hector Navarro.
What did you think about the Jay Washington situation? Do you think he retired from singles, or do you think he's now in inner geekdom play only, like I think he is?
Well, I certainly think he wants to focus on that. I don't know if never say never for the general singles play, but it certainly seems like he wants to aim towards the inner geekdom for sure, calling out Hector Navarro. I think we'll have to wait and see what happens after the free-for-all. Maybe he does really well, and he goes, hey, maybe also do more in the general singles at the same time going after the inner geekdom belt. So I didn't really pick that up right away. Maybe if he really feels like the geek stuff is really his area, I could see that too. I'm just not quite sure.
Commenters, let us know how you interpreted Jay's post-interview. Do you think he retired from singles play to focus on inner geekdom only? Do you disagree? Let us know what you think either way.
Poll number 2.
With Andreyko getting a win, a much needed win, it does give us hope for that Bibiani-Andreyko rematch. I know those guys want that to happen. Just a matter of time when that will and how everything lines up. As for Jay Washington, he says comic books is his thing, the inner geekdom is his thing. I'm not so sure I could agree with it. I don't know. I haven't really seen a lot of Jay Washington. Perhaps he is really good at comic book movies, but from the questions we've seen in the inner geekdom, they're really tough.
Yeah,
nothing like we saw here in this match. They're nothing like, and you're not going to get any Macy Gray answers, I think, in the Inner Geekdom series. So, I mean, it's one thing to like comic book movies; it's another thing to know them. And I think maybe Jay Washington likes them more than he knows them. But that's kind of how I kind of feel at the moment. But I'm interested to see him get in there and wow me and surprise me, because that would be fantastic.
Does Finn Draco count against his win-loss record officially?
In the record books, it does not.
Okay.
In me personally, I think it does, but that's just my own
for
personal
me
thing.
But yeah, it was great for Android to get back on track, just like Bibiani got back on track recently. Of course, Android's loss as Finn Draco is not officially counting against him, but I want to see Bibiani and Android in a sequel matchup, and the fact that they both are coming off wins is the quickest way to make that happen. So let's get Android and Bibiani part 2. Who knows how that'll turn out? I know I want to watch it.
Is the Collider Studios big enough for a rematch between these two titans? Speaking of Frank Janisch, he actually got to sit down and talk to Mark, the Android Andreyko, after his match. And let's go to that right now.
All right, we have Andreyko here. Congratulations on the win.
Thank you.
And how did it feel to win, even though your first match with Bibiani was so close? I mean, well, first of all, how did that really sit with you after that first loss?
The first loss was annoying because of the labyrinth question. I literally haven't seen that movie since it came out in the theaters when I was in junior high school. It is what it is. I was kind of shocked to find out that my losing score against Bibiani was the second highest score after him.
Yeah.
Which is, it's all about statistics and averages and that sort of thing. But the thing that's fascinating about doing this is that no matter how much you prepare, it's completely up to the hands of fate. You're either going to get categories you like, or categories you're good at, or you're going to get something completely that you know nothing about, like today with Star Wars. I know some stuff from the first three the first 3 release movies.
Sure.
I didn't see Force Awakens or Rogue One. I didn't see Attack of the Clones. I've blocked the other 2 prequels from my mind. So that could have destroyed me.
So I don't think, should we see you in the Inner Geekdom perhaps if Star Wars is half and half for you?
I don't know. I'm still trying to figure out how this all works. I've never been good with like March Madness brackets and all that sort of thing, and it's like fantasy football. I just kind of talk to Christian and say, where do you want me to go? And whatever that means, if it's Inner Geekdom or a team or a solo or a doubles or a triple axel or whatever it is, oh sure. Just point me where I'm going to go and I'll talk.
So you got the win today. Mm-hmm. Are you looking for that rematch with Bibiani down the line?
Yeah, I think it would be fun. Absolutely, I think it would be definitely be fun because once again, it's completely the great equalizer is the questions.
Sure.
You can't prepare. You don't get anything ahead of time. That wheel will be your best friend or your worst enemy. The wheel's never just okay. The wheel either loves you or it hates you. And for every I got Star Wars today, and that sort of cursed me. But then I got questions about the First Wives Club and Murrell Interrupted, which I know weren't Mr. Washington's, his go-to place of film. So everything balances out. But that's what's the fun about it, because I consider, I'm a really good Trivial Pursuit player. I know a little about a lot. But with some of these categories, especially ones that get really into minutia, the Star Wars categories, the Star Trek categories, I don't know what the thread count of Captain Kirk's suit was in episode 4 of season 1. So those sort of things can really throw you. And sometimes you can just freeze. Sometimes it's on the tip of your tongue, That's why in my match, when the Logan's Run question came up, I was waiting for him to get it at the last possible second, because there's always that time where you're thinking you have to go through the files in your brain, right. You open that file, you have access to it, hope it hasn't been corrupted, and sometimes it comes and sometimes it doesn't.
For the first round, when you last competed, you had 6 questions. Now it's 8 questions. Do you like that it's a little bit 2 questions longer for that opportunity to get, I guess, the categories won't be as random
with the dry erase board?
Yeah,
I like that a lot. I think that equalizes things. That sets a stage for anybody, because even though when I went up against Bibiani, I was kicking ass the first round in those questions. That was before the dry erase board. You can do great in that first round, and then the second round with with multiple choice
kind of carry it. Yeah.
And then the third round, those random questions from the numbers, those can really screw you. But I think the dry erase round, I think, sets the stage for it. It can be anybody's game.
Yeah, because I think your performance in the first round kind of helped carry you through that second round.
Oh, yeah. If I wasn't ahead by 4 points in the first round, the second round, he would have won.
So that can kind of be somewhat of a saving grace.
It can, but even if you're ahead, it doesn't guarantee anything.
Sure.
Because especially in that third round, when the questions go 2, 3, and 5, you can be way ahead. But if you miss the number 3 and the number 5, that points, and that's almost the first 2 rounds combined, question-wise. So it's all up to the fickle winds of fate, and that's what's fun about it. It's what's fun about it. Nobody likes to lose, but even when you lose, it's like there's no shame in losing because you have no control over it.
Sure.
If you had to pick your categories and then to be crude, then you hit the embarrassed. With this, it's the spin of the wheel, it's the random numbers. It's what makes it so much fun because. Like JTE beating Viviani, or Roca beating Dan Murrell. Things you don't expect. It's just the luck of that day and what the wheel says or what the questions are.
How'd you like the new wheel? I mean, it's a lot bigger.
Well, it's nicer.
Yeah.
It looks a little bit less like Little Rascals. Much like the wheel on Wheel of Fortune, it's much heavier than it looks. You have to really, really spin that thing. It weighs a lot.
Cool.
The second round that I saw, the Bibiani round, I will never pick mixed bag ever because that went from questions that are like, "What day is it?" to "What was the craft service on Titanic's 4th day of shooting?" It was like that open road question. I love open road, and even that question, I was like, "Wait a minute, what was his name?" So, but that once again, as I've said a number of times, it's the great equalizer. You never know what you're going to get. You can't get too cocky in this game because the moment you get cocky, you get a question that's like, no.
Yeah, it humbles you real quick.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Is there any word on the free-for-all with you?
I believe I'm doing it.
Okay.
I'm doing it. Yeah, I think so. Once again, I'm pretty sure I'm doing that. I just have to check with the schedules and all that stuff. Because like I said, I kind of I show up here and they just it's like Weekend at Bernie's. They put me in the corner where I need to be. So yeah.
And real quick, how's everything going on with the Lion's Den after Dan Murrell's departure and JTE and Snyder and their personality? How does that?
It is what it is. It's like anything else. It's like any other sports team. There, everybody. You all want the same results, but there are different personalities, and teammates aren't necessarily all friends, and friends aren't necessarily good teammates.
Sure.
So there you have it.
Okay. Well, I think that's going to do it here.
Awesome.
All right. Thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
We are back. We are talking the second singles recap this week. It was a doubleheader. One half of the team champions, the Snyder, Jeff Snyder, going up against who I would like to call right now the man of destiny, Josh the Wild Man Makuga. And it was everything it lived up to be. The stakes were that if Makuga was able to pull off the victory, he and a partner of his choosing would get a title shot at Team Patriots somewhere down the line. If Jeff Snyder won, then Tom Dagnino would be immediately reinstated into the league. Let's jump into round one. It was a dead heat as both Jeff Snyder and Josh Makuga both end up with 5 points in the round. Frank, what did you think of round one?
I love round one, especially because Makuga is known as a slow starter. He got 5 questions right, neck and neck with Snyder. I was a little iffy on Snyder, how he would start as well, because he did lose to Stuckman, which is just one of the worst losses outside of the Cody Miller loss. I think Stuckman is a really bad loss because Stuckman has never played in the Schmoedown.
Bad day for Snyder that day. Really bad.
The way he started, I thought it was pretty good. And he was pretty cocky in that first round, handing out or extending out his whiteboard when he was done, kind of taunting Makuga there. But Makuga didn't really take the bait. He got 5 out of 8, same as Snyder. So it was a really, really great match. And if you noticed Christian Harloff, he was giddy through this first round, like I've never seen before.
Yeah, very back and forth. I was shocked by the no answers to questions 5 and 6, Disney attraction films. No one got Haunted Mansion or the recent Tomorrowland. I was shocked that no one thought of Inigo Montoya. I mean, Makuga thought of it. He just didn't have the first name correct. And has anyone heard Christian Harloff say, "Let's get ready to Schmoedown" before? Is this his new thing?
I have not heard that before. That took me by surprise.
If he does it next, next match, then it's a thing. But right now, it's just like an anomaly, I guess.
There were some interesting things, though, in the intros as Snyder was flanked by JTE and the Android. So they were there. The Lions, Denzel was there to support their guy. And this is a very different scene from Murrell's last match. And I thought Josh looked loose. I thought Makuga looked very loose. He had a lot on the line, but he came out, he took a shot, he threw the Finstock mask down. So just a solid match from a presentation standpoint, too.
All right, let's jump into round 2. It was the end Snyder taking very confidently Denzel Washington, and it was probably a good thing that he did because he went 4 of 4 and got all 8 points plus a 1-point steal for a 9-point round. Makuga took 80s, stuck with it, 3 of 4 for 6 points in the round. Frank, tell me what you thought of round 2. Where did you think it was going to go from there?
Hell of a round 2 when Snyder went bananas on that Denzel category. I thought Makuga was in some serious trouble for sure. I mean, that was one of the most impressive runs we've seen Snyder go on. So when Makuga got 80s, I was like, oh, okay. That big question with Zoltar, that's a pretty popular movie. But that Zoltar, I mean, I've seen that movie dozens of times, and it's a weird name. I was really glad he got the correct answer. And I thought the other questions were fairly easy, that for him at least, I would think. So when he got 3 out of 4 for 6 points, and unfortunately he gave up that 1-pointer. That 1-pointer at the end, that kind of just takes the win out of your sails, I think, at least for him, because he was doing so good. He was matching him beat for beat up until that point, and then not only did he get it wrong, but he ended up giving up a point to Snyder. So we're going to need some real magic from Makuga here in his third round, which historically he is pretty good in the third round. So I wasn't completely down in the dumps at that point.
Well, this is the round that earned the Lions Den the new name of the Lions Denzel. Snyder, what a showing. This also prompted the question that I asked earlier. Why not a bonus question if you run the table in round 2 like Snyder did? And a quick or a small issue, the Beverly Hills Cop question, they should say Eddie Murphy's Axel Foley, not Eddie Murphy. Where was he from? That's the actor's name. I don't know. I'm just very particular about establishing characters or differentiating characters from the actors. But Frank said it. The Subway question was a huge momentum killer for Makuga. A lot of people don't associate drive-thrus with Subway, and I can see why he would eliminate Subway, because they went on this big health kick after Lethal Weapon 2 came out. So they don't have very many drive-through restaurants anymore. So that just crushed him, even though he had some big answers, as we'll talk about in round 3. That really kind of crushed the momentum and his spirit a little bit, I'd say.
Did Snyder not know what Blimpie was? He seemed like he'd never heard of Blimpie subs before.
It seemed like it, yeah.
Anyway, let's jump into round 3, where it was Josh Makuga. He got his 2-pointer, missed the 3, but did get his 5 to retake a short lead. Jeff Snyder got his 2 and sealed the deal with a 3-point question, and it was the insider, Jeff Snyder, trouncing the dreams of Josh Makuga in championship glory, 19-18 in a great match, good as advertised. Brian, what did you think of this overall?
Yeah, I knew that by picking Josh Makuga that Snyder was going to make me pay for that this week. And did you guys know the snuggly duckling question by chance? I'm just curious.
I didn't know the answer, but I do have an issue with saying that Tangled is not good or you shouldn't watch it. Tangled is fantastic. That is a fantastic animated Disney film. I'm not big on animation, but that's one I truly enjoy.
Frank, did you know what snuggly duckling?
I did not. I've never seen Tangled. I'm not that great on animation either, so.
And it's a play on Ugly Duckling. That's what the play is on. Makuga just couldn't figure that out for some reason. That's what it's a play on.
Yeah, but Makuga had a big round nonetheless. He got Incredible Hulk. He got Any Given Sunday, which that was a guess as well from what it sounded like, Dallas Knights. But Jeff was just too strong. Again, the Denzel round really catapulted him. And when people say Matt Damon, Robert De Niro, I don't know how many people saw The Good Shepherd. I didn't see it. It's not the first movie that comes to mind when you think of Angelina Jolie, Matt Damon, Robert De Niro. But that's just me. Jeff Snyder took it nonetheless. Tom Dagnino can return to manage the Lions Den. And I love how, since he can't wear his Finstock mask, he's not allowed to be Finstock for another 11 or 10 months or so. But he basically created a makeshift mask as he had this camo headgear on, plus his own beard and sunglasses. So he was still trying to make his own makeshift mask.
Well, he was out of the country. I mean, it makes sense. You grow a beard when you're on vacation. It makes sense. But I thought it was very convenient that Tom Dagnino was in the building. I thought that he wasn't allowed in the building, but that's just me. But I stand corrected, I guess. What do you think, Frank?
Well, if I understand correctly, he was out in the alley somewhere waiting for the result, I believe.
That's right.
That sounds about right.
Just kicking rocks. I don't know. Overall, this match, well, the third round, really, I want to go back with Makuga real quick. Up until this point, he has only missed 1 3-pointer and 1 5-pointer in 7 of the times he's been in the third round. So I was pretty confident he would do well in the third round. He missed that tangled question, which I can understand why he did. He did get the 5-pointer. I don't know how he always gets these 5-pointers. And this is what makes him so unpredictable, because when he gets to the third round, he really does put pressure on his opponent because of his track record in the third round. He's always getting those 8 to 7 points, 6 points in that third round. And that's a big chunk of points for an opposing player to combat with on their own. Now 2-pointer, 3-pointer, and 5-pointer. The Good Shepherd question that Snyder pulled out, I thought that was a great pull. I've seen The Good Shepherd. It was a long time ago. I knew what movie it was, just that title name was not coming to me. So for him to pull that one out, I thought that was a really great answer. Overall, I was rooting for Makuga. My heart was for Makuga, and I thought my head was saying Makuga, but I think I was just lying to myself because I love Makuga. But this is the first quality win in my eyes for Snyder, because the Miami one was just, and then he beats Makuga Jason Inman. So the Jason Inman it can go either way. He's not particularly that strong in singles. So Makuga for me has been the best win for him. So I will say good for him, but I'm not sure how he's going to fare going forward. I don't know who else he's going to take on, because if he wants to go up that ladder, it's getting crowded and it's very stacked.
I don't think I've ever seen The Good Shepherd. I can't really recall. I just assume when Jeff Snyder pulls out something very confidently like that he probably broke the scoop on it. And that's something that Christian alluded to earlier in the match, that, hey, he probably broke that scoop. More than likely, he probably did. I mean, the guy's got all sorts of knowledge. It doesn't surprise me that he pulls out these answers like that, like the Robert Duvall in the team championship match at the Spectacular. The guy, take a shot. The guy knows his stuff, man. And it's Snyder, when he gets that confidence, when he gets going, you can just see that he's focused and ready to take somebody down. And unfortunately, Makuga was that guy. And finally, more or less, the Lion's Den finally gets a leg up on Makuga, because he was taking him out left and right. So it was kind of nice to see the Lion's Den finally take a stand. And it looks like with JTE and Jeff Snyder as the champions, the Lion's Den might be headed back up, especially with with Tom Dagnino back into the fold.
Snyder is underrated, I think, because I don't think he would have lost the Stuckman match under normal circumstances. The Stuckman match, again, Snyder had the worst possible day. His head wasn't there. Snyder is more dangerous than I think a lot of us give him credit for. We know he's good in team matches with JTE by his side. They both get more confidence than usual, but I think Snyder in singles is more than we give him credit for, and I'm never going to underestimate him again. But post-interviews, Tom was back to doing his mumbling, but he did acknowledge finally that Dan Murrell supposedly was fired by him 2 weeks before he supposedly quit in his title match with Roca. So Dagnino is already back to his old trick.
I was actually happy to see that post-match interview, to see the Lions Den finally sort of as a cohesive unit there, because Andreyko was there. He had some good lines. I feel like everybody got their time in the post-match interview, and it was very cohesive. I've said before in the past, I feel like Jeff Snyder has gotten much better on the mic in terms of Schmoedown promos. I think that continued in this. Tom Dagnino's always been great on the mic. JT is getting better as well. And it was cool to see Android throw in some barbs as well. I really enjoyed that. What about you, Frank?
Seeing the Lions Den there, it was interesting. I just feel like, Snyder and JTE and Finstock, there's that 3, and then there's Andreyko. I'm not sure what role he's going to play in the end for them, if he's going to be their inner geekdom guy. So it's gonna be. I'm interested to see how they continue to go, because it is also weird. Why do you kick out at the time the champ 2 weeks before their fight? I'm not sure on the logic with that one. I would love to hear it in Finstock speak or Dagnino speak to try and justify that one. I thought that was pretty funny.
You try to justify anything that Finstock does, you're just going to end up with a headache. Just put it that way. Before we get to our team and singles previews for the week, I wanted to take a second and tell you guys how you can support the show. Please go to the Schmoes Know iTunes feed, give us a 5-star rating, and leave a comment. It helps out everybody on the channel, no matter if you're on your computer, your smartphone, perhaps a tablet.
I'm done with the tablets.
You will be helping us out tremendously in every show on the new SK Plus feed, including this show, the Schmoedown Rundown, After Schmo, The Wanger Show, Don't Be a Beardo, and the soon-to-be returning Harloff podcast. Please support all of those shows. Be sure to also follow the show on Twitter at SD Rundown.
Not on Snapface and all that, instant chat or whatever it is.
And now back to the show. We are back with team previews. This is a rematch that we've all been anticipating. It is Team Top 10, John Roca and Matt Nost getting back into action since the Spectacular versus a team we haven't seen from even longer than that. Team Schmoes, Christian Harloff and Mark Ellis. Frank, I'm going to kick it to you for this one. Give me some stats, and who do you think has got the upper hand? Who do you think is going to win this matchup?
Well, the wild card really is Matt Nost. He's been out of the Schmoedown arena for quite some time. Christian and Mark, they're around it every week, whether or not they're competing or not. They're still at the desk asking questions. I'm sure they're answering them themselves in their head at least. And then top 10 with Roca, he's the only guy outside of Nost who's been around this. And yeah, Nost, he shows up with the Four Horsemen every now and then when it's due. So Matt Nost again is a wild card for me, but I'll be damned if that guy has not been studying since that last loss to the Patriots. I am rooting for top 10. I do think they're going to win. Entering this match, they are answering nearly 80% correct as a team. Going up against the Schmoes, about 73% correct. Top 10 also very good on the steals. They've been 8 out of their 10 opportunities. Schmoes pretty good as well. They've been 5 out of 8. So I think it's going to be a much closer match. The Schmoes caught a bad run, much like Nost did against the Patriots, except it was a collective team effort for Schmoes. I don't foresee a knockout. I don't even see a TKO happening. I think this will definitely go down to the last question, maybe the second to last question. But I will take Team Top 10 on this one. Top 10 is just a better overall team throughout their entire run. They're 4-2, losing only to basically JTE twice, which is really weird. So I don't foresee a knockout happening. I don't foresee a TKO happening.
Well said. What do you think, Brian?
I'm going with Team Top 10, and the reason is exactly like Frank said, Matt Nost. Matt Nost is hungry. I think he feels embarrassed about his recent performance, especially when he is the teammate of the singles champion. I know he does not want to have people saying the singles champion John Roca is carrying his teammate. I'm sure that stuff is getting to him. And with the Schmoes, they've been out of this so long that I don't know how hungry they are. I don't know how much they really want this. I always know that top 10 wants to win. They have their eye on the belts at all times. I'm never questioning their motivation. Mark and Christian have been very busy with tons of other things, running Schmoedown, running all their different shows and doing stand-up, prepping for stand-up, running this podcast channel. They've got so much on their plate while Top 10 just focuses on this match. So I'm taking Team Top 10. Matt Nost gets back on track and shows us the guy he used to be.
Why are you guys making me do this? You're making me be opposite, only because I was going to do this all along. Frank, if you recall one of our earlier episodes when we talked to Ellis about the first matchup, the first time the titles were on the line, and I took Team Top 10, and Ellis gave me a lot of crap about it, saying that, can't wait for you to be wrong or something like that. And, well, I ended up being right. But for this one, I'm taking the Schmoes. I think it is incredibly hard to beat a team like they did. Top 10, I'll say it, Top 10 embarrassed Team Schmoes. They knocked them out. No one saw that coming. Absolute destruction of the team champions. And I think they took that to heart. I think that nobody likes to be embarrassed, especially in their house. And I don't see it happen again, so I'm taking the Schmoes to beat Team Top 10.
Roka would argue that it's his house.
I'm sure he would. And then he would, of course, to make that point, he would steal the microphone from in the fight.
I was going to say. Exactly.
Our singles preview this week is another epic match that I think could be one of the most, if not the most, highly anticipated match we've ever had. It is Mark Yodi Reilly versus his teammate, his friend, his colleague, his co-host, the classy one, Clarke Wolfe. Brian, I'm going to start with you on this one. Where are you leaning? Who do you got?
And this one is really tough. I'm huge fans of both Reilly and Clarke. I've had conversations with both of them. They're both genuine people. They say what they mean what they say. They don't backstab you. They don't say one thing and do another. They are some of the best people I've met online by far. And it's so hard to pick one against the other. And I'm so afraid that the winner of this match, regardless of who it is going to then force the breakup of Wolves of Steel. I've been fearing this for quite some time, but I have a feeling that Mark Reilly's going to win. And I hate to say it, but as a result of Clarke losing, I feel like she's going to take a step back from singles. And this is something that she has said for a while, that if she loses her next singles match, that she'll take a break. And the anxiety kind of gets to her, of course. And, I can't handle less Clarke Wolfe for obvious reasons. We already have less Clarke Wolfe on our plates currently. And I just can't handle seeing even less of her on the Schmoedown.
Tough scenario. Frank, what do you think, man?
Yeah, I've thought a lot about this match, actually. What it would mean for these two to go against each other and the outcome of this match. I've been a big fan of Clarke Wolfe from the very beginning. Through her 6 matches, she's answering 70% correct. Through Reilly's 10 matches, he's answering nearly 73% correct. So both answering at a very high rate. And here's a really cool stat about Clarke Wolfe. She is 6 for 6 in steal opportunities, which is a perfect 100%. She's the only one in the league with a minimum of 4 steal opportunities to be perfect. Reilly, he is 7 of 10, so he's had a couple more opportunities, but he's 7 of 10. So statistically speaking, Clarke Wolfe is better at stealing, so I think that's an interesting stat. That if she gets an opportunity to steal a question off of Reilly in round 2, it could mean a lot in this match. As for Brian bringing up, he thinks that this could lead to the split of the Wolves of Steel. I'm actually on the other side of it. I think whoever wins, and it's kind of predicated on this needs to be a close match. It needs to be tight. It needs to be a well-played match where players maybe miss 2 or 3 questions throughout the match. And if that happens, I think it brings them closer together as a team and makes them stronger as a team. Because let's face it, Reilly, he's been really kind of carrying the weight these past couple matches on the team side of things. And Wolfe hasn't quite had the confidence that she had in the beginning. The win against JTE was great to help build that up. But if she can perform well in here, in this match, even if she loses, which unfortunately I think is going to happen, but even if she loses, I think they will recognize each other's strong play and say, you know what? Going forward in the team, if we play like this, there's nobody that we can't beat. So I think that can be a really good team building thing, despite there being a winner and a loser.
You guys are making me do this again. You're going to make me do this again. And it's not because I want to. It's just because that's what I have in my brain. I love Mark Reilly. I love Clarke. I don't personally want to see Reilly Roka 3. I understand that Reilly has to, in the wrestling business, they call that getting your receipt on somebody after they've beaten you a couple times. I don't want to see that. I've seen it twice. It doesn't end well for Mark Reilly. I don't want him to lose again. That would just be awful for the guy's confidence. I think this is the time that Clarke Wolfe takes that step up the ladder, the biggest step. She had the match against Dan Murrell last season. It did not go her way. I think this is the time. I think she beats Mark Reilly. I think she gets that title shot at John Roca. if nothing else, John Roca this week said that out of anybody in the Schmoedown who he would want to take on that he hasn't taken on before, it would be Clarke Wolfe, because he thinks that they match up very well against each other, and that is a match I want to see. I think it would be a gigantic matchup. You're talking views at the yin yang to see that match. I'm taking the classy one. I think she does just enough to beat Mark Reilly in a classic match where at the end they shake hands and hug and cry. I don't know. We'll see. But I think it's going to be right. I think it's going to be a great match. I'm taking the classy one.
I hope you're right. I really do hope you're right, because again, the threat of Clarke not being on the Schmoedown as much terrifies me, but I just can't shake this feeling that Reilly's going to win. And Frank, to respond to something you said, I'm less bullish on Wolves of Steel breaking up now that I know that Makuga is no longer going to be dangling a title opportunity against the Patriots. Because Makuga had that potential mystery partner title opportunity, I thought he's great friends with Reilly. Clarke's also an option as well. That Reilly challenge, the fact that he stepped aside for Clarke to play JTE sooner than him, that just spelled trouble. But now that he lost to Snyder, I'm not as concerned about Wolves of Steel as I was, admittedly.
I think that's a good thought stream. Once Makuga was not able to win the match and have a partner, I think that kind of cemented that the Wolves of Steel were sticking together, so you're probably dead on that one. That's going to do it for the previews, and that's going to do it for this episode of the Schmoedown Rundown. No Twitter questions this week, guys. We'll be back with those next week. Just keep firing them in there. Still have the Rocky Horror digital copy to give away. So if you missed out, you threw in a question for this week, we just did not have time to put those together. I'm sorry. We'll be back with those next week. But before we go, let's see where everybody's at and where they can be found. Frank Janisch, what about you, sir? Where can you be found? What you got going on?
I'm on Twitter at FrankieJ29. I'm posting a lot more stats up there. Some right after the match. So it's a little spoilery, but that is Twitter. You know, it's spoiler heaven. So it won't be in the Facebook page, but you can also catch me there, and I will post some stats in there after the 24-hour ban and all that stuff. So that's where you guys can find me.
What about you, Brian? Where can you be found, sir?
You guys can follow me, Brian Davids, on Twitter at BDF331. Also check out my TV and film podcast at filmschlubspodcast.com. We return next week as Peak TV is about to get started in April.
You can always find me on Twitter at ATTitanium. And if you just want to catch the show on Twitter at SD Rundown, submit your questions. Doesn't have to be for a contest. If you just want to ask the panel something, we will be glad to respond to you. Just throw it in there. We appreciate it.